Don't vote for me. It's Wednesday, that means Black Mirror, and I am now on the third episode of the second season, and that puts me at the Waldo moment. This one was weird. I don't just mean like as a premise, as a story. I mean for Black Mirror, this one is weird, and this one it's happened with a couple of episodes where I haven't done my review immediately after watching it. I have instead sort of thought on it and worked over in my head what is it that I just watched. And usually when I do that, it's because I need more time to digest it and sort of deal with everything that it, sort of brought up within me. In the case of this one, I've just been trying to figure out what it is it's actually doing, because there's one of a couple things going on here. Either I missed something, which is a distinct possibility that I'm completely open to, and I fully expect there'll be commenters pointing out if that is in fact the case. But if I didn't, then it seems to try and combine two different ideas that I'm not sure actually complement each other, and also neither of which feels properly explored. Now, to a certain extent, I kind of made a complaint a little bit like this about the season 4 episode called Archangel, but in that one, I said that the episode could have used more focus on something really specific about the technology that episode was exploring. But at the very least, the two things that I said it was doing that I kind of wish it had just focused on one of them, at the very least, very much complemented each other. They were inherently about, more or less the same thing, just slightly, more specific on one or another aspect of it. In this case, this seems to be combining, sort of concepts of a creator losing control and ownership of his own creation, at the same time as sort of looking at the absurdity of, I was going to say the absurdity of politics. I'm not sure if I could say that. That sounds like overselling it. I guess the absurdity of the electoral process. And those two ideas don't inherently gel, and I'm not sure that the episode found a way to mesh them properly, which is a shame, because I think it was still doing some interesting things in both realms, just because they don't kind of buoy each other. Both those aspects feel a little bit underserved, and I feel like if this was going to be much more about a creator or an artist finding out that he is not necessary for the success of the art that he was the creator for, and the sort of something that was his getting out of control and becoming bigger than him, it could have dug into that a bit more. Although I feel like that's something that I've seen done elsewhere, often in these kind of literalized forms. I'm not sure I could say where I've seen it done well, because most of the examples that I can think of, my brain is kind of jumping to things like Cool World or Simone, or it's an interesting concept that I've seen explored before. I'm not sure I've seen a good film or show or anything actually trying to address it, but it's, and I'm not sure this does that well a job of addressing it either. So there's that, and then there's, we literally have a talking blue bear running for office, and this is being treated surprisingly seriously by a surprising number of people. And that, I can't put myself back in time and know what that was like to watch at the time that it aired. What I can say is that living in an era where it feels like that kind of happened, it comes across basically as pointing out the problem, but not having anything to say about it. And that's not me saying like it needs to propose a solution or anything, because I'm not sure there is a solution to that kind of problem. But at the very least, I feel like it should be making a statement about it, besides just kind of pointing and going, hey, isn't that messed up? And maybe that would have played better, you know, back before it feels like this actually happened, and it could have gotten away with being a bit more, you know, prophetic in a forward-thinking way, as opposed to prophetic in hindsight, where it becomes, on the one hand, kind of unnerving, and not in... It being prophetic didn't hit me in the funny bone the way that, say, National Anthem did. In this case, it was just like, because reality actually went this way to a certain degree, I look at this and it feels like something that was written just this past year, and it would have been considered very on the nose, not particularly subtle, doesn't really have an overall point kind of satire. And I can appreciate the forward-thinkingness of it for when it was aired, you know, predating the 2016 presidential election in the U.S., if you hadn't already figured out who I was talking about. And, you know, I really try not to bring my own politics into this show if I can help it, unless I feel they're exceptionally relevant. But I think I can't not. At the very least, without getting into too many specifics of my own political hang-ups or whatnot, at the very least, please grant me that 2016 saw someone who was popularly understood to primarily be, at that point, an entertainer, and running a campaign that most people considered to be a joke, and who at the same time still garnered, you know, in a degree of support that was largely dismissed, but was highly significant, despite, you know, this person skirting all the normal niceties of how politics are usually run. Whether you consider all that to be a good thing or a bad thing, that's kind of objectively what happened. And that just makes watching this episode just a strange experience. But if I try and remove myself from the prophetic nature of the whole thing, I'm just left going, okay, so an artist loses control of his art, so what? You know, the political process is kind of hollow and screwed up, and a lot of people don't take it seriously who should. So what? You know, I just feel like there isn't a point being made. And maybe the problem is that usually Black Mirror, it's not always making certainly not making like a huge thematic or certainly not political point most of the time, but it is at the very least usually making an emotional point. You know, something like White Bear or the entire history of you or Crocodile or all those things, they are making emotional points. This doesn't feel like it has that. This doesn't connect with me exceptionally in terms of getting me emotionally. And so that just leaves me with something that I'm not sure what its point was, which inclines me to think that it didn't hit it hard enough. Because like I said, I'm just left with these two aspects that don't really complement each other, at least not as well as they needed to. And again, like I said, it is a distinct possibility that I'm just not getting something. I admire some of the ideas, but just this is like the one case, because generally this show executes at a very high level. And in this case, I feel like the script needed another draft, another polish to refine exactly what it was that it was doing. So I feel like it was one maybe two revisions away from really coming together, and instead we're left with something that I can recognize the potential in the components, and I can recognize sort of aspects and where they could go, but it doesn't feel like any of them fully arrive anywhere. And I think this is definitely my least favorite episode of this season. It's probably my least favorite episode of Black Mirror I've seen to date. And reminder for folks, I've now seen all of season 4, all of season 1, and I believe this is the last episode of season 2. So I've just got the Christmas special in season 3 to get through now. But this probably is my least favorite. That said, it's still not bad. It doesn't quite get there, but it's still well acted. It's still dealing with some interesting concepts, and it's trying to look at sort of the mimetic nature of just how we digest information and even stuff that is supposed to be taken seriously. I get all that. And that's all stuff worth exploring. And again, while it doesn't quite get there, it's not a total failure. It's not like I'm watching it going, boy, you didn't even come close to hitting the point you were trying to make. I just feel like it didn't quite know exactly what it was targeting. And so it's just a little bit unfocused. And that's a shame, because I think, speaking as someone, I hesitate to call myself a creator, because that seems like lofty and self-important. But I mean, I do this. I write. I don't have anything published. Don't ask. But like, I enjoy stories about stories. I enjoy stories about artists and the relationship they have with their art. That's something I can connect with. Yet this one didn't really connect with me. Again, I just keep coming back to this. I think it's because I don't think the episode really knew if it was about that more than it was about how messed up politics and the public's relationship with the political process is. So yeah, that's the Waldo moment. It just kind of an odd one, I think. And I get the impression that this is probably one of the less liked episodes. I didn't think too much of that going in, because Metalhead also appeared to be one of the less liked episodes, in season 4, and I really enjoyed that one. So I didn't take it as a given that this was going to be a weaker episode, but I think it just is. There's good building blocks here. It's just not. It just doesn't come together. I feel like I've said some variant of that same thing probably 50 times now, so that's probably the point that I'm just gonna wrap this thing up. So, the Waldo moment, what were your thoughts on it? Whatever they were, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Do all that stuff. You know what there is to do. Support me on Patreon if you're feeling generous. Like, subscribe. I got t-shirts, I got a podcast, Twitter, bleh. Links for all that stuff is down in the description. So until next time, this council is adjourned.